Hairston,
Here.
Bashir Jones,
Here.
McCormick,
Present.
Fife.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Development Planning Sustainability Committee hearing is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by sub HB 197. This meeting is being held using a Zoom platform and is being live streamed on YouTube and on Cleveland's Channel 20. It also can be seen on the Cleveland City Council website and from Council's Facebook page. In accordance with the Ohio Open Meetings regulations as amended by sub HB 197, notice of this committee hearing was publicly posted. This committee hearing will be conducted as all committee hearings in accordance with council rules and council Robert Rules of Order. The chair will facilitate the meeting and open on persons to speak. And if you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand option on Zoom. Please limit your comments and the matters before today's committee. As usual, practice any action to be voted on during this committee will be done by voice vote called and recorded by the committee clerk. Today, we're going to have a presentation with Director Cox and talking about our lot cleanup program, our lot cutting, and where we're going from here. And I'm just going to turn the meeting right over to Director Cox. Director Cox, welcome and good morning.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the council. Let me first start by saying we had a bad start to this year. Due to the conditions of the pandemic, we had to bring people on. I'm not making excuses. I don't want to make excuses, but we had to bring people on later. Our hand crews did not get on until May 4th. In simple terms, we lost this first round to things that were challenging to us, whether it was the rain or it was bringing people on later or equipment breakdown. So I'm not happy with the way the grass was. We finally got through our first cut. I think we now started to get our stride, and we got through our first tractor cut. Trim crews are still, about 7 to 10 days behind on those lots. But I think right now we are starting to get control of it. And we also have additional 10 tractors coming after you gentlemen and ladies pass the capital budget. So we have ordered those. We should have those in another week, 2 weeks. And I think we are now catching up and doing what we need to do to make sure that these lots are cut and trimmed the way they should be.
So I had sent out late last night, I'd gotten some numbers on the number of lots that the city of Cleveland now owns. I think that number was somewhere around 16,000 lots that the city now owns. And I also layered in over 3,000 condemned properties that are abandoned, and then another approximate 8,000 other abandoned properties, which if we went through 3 cycles of cutting, it would put us over 80,000 service visits. And if we ended up getting 4 cycles in this year, it'll be over 100,000 service visits. Director, can you talk about how many crews you have going out, how many sections you have? I had sent out the maps to our colleagues on how many service stations you have, but if you can run down that a little bit, please.
We have 6 service stations spread around the city. The Brookside, East 65th, Humphreys. We have what we call Dobbins North and Dobbins South. We break up part of the central and southeast side of the city in the Dobbins station located on Woodhill Road. We have approximately 180 people in our vacant properties and vacant lot program. As you know, we hire those out of agency people to do the cut the vacant structures and to trim the vacant lots. Then we hire about 33 seasonal drivers, ground maintenance workers to cut the lots with our tractors. So we are about that in that range of 100,000. We will be getting in our 4 cuts this year. The 4th cut is almost like a spring cleanup cut. Is to try to keep that grass at a level that when spring hits, it doesn't pop up like it normally would if you didn't get that 4th cut in.
So you are going to get the 4th cut in this year?
We are. That is our plan. Unless we get an early winter or something, we usually work till around October. As you remember, we went from 21 weeks of cutting and cleaning to 28 weeks about 3 years ago, when we increased the number of staffing that we put on. So we have now in a 28-week cycle of cutting the vacant properties in the city.
And you said, how many new tractors are you getting in, sir?
We're getting in 10 new tractors. Right now we have about 28 tractors. They go down naturally when you work them as hard as we're working them. They got to regenerate some of them. Just, some are old and we're replacing some of them. But we should get 10 tractors in maybe in the next 2 weeks, new tractors. And then we'll have additional tractors out in the field cutting these vacant lots on this second cycle.
And approximately how many staff have you brought on?
Well, we have 180 people in this program, in this service program. That's how many people we staff this program with. We put on more than that in parks and cemeteries where we bring on seasonal workers also. But in the vacant property program, we have about 180 workers.
And so I had sent out earlier, and I had mentioned off camera, sadly both the pandemic as well as weather was not cooperating with us. The month of May was the 5th wettest month in the history. So for those who got those early cuts in April when the weather was nice, could barely tell after a very wet May. But you're now just finishing that last cycle of the tractor cuts and moving into the final on the trim?
Yes, sir. We are. Well, we've been trimming. Again, we brought, because of the pandemic, we couldn't bring all of our staff in at one time because of the social distancing and the number of groups that you can bring into any facility. So we staggered them in starting in May. We usually bring them on in April, but we started bringing them on in May because of the pandemic and understanding how we have to separate people in vehicles and everything else, and the social distancing we had to have and how we sign them in and do all those things. The tractor cuts, we started in April, but again, we were limited by a number of rain days we had and other things that we had to do. And again, it's not we kind of lost the councilman, to be blunt with you. We kind of lost the lots, and I think everybody on this conference call understands that we lost that, but we're catching up, and we will be catching up and doing what we need to do to make sure these lots are in a condition that's worthy of the people that live in the city.
And all of our parks and all of our playgrounds are all getting serviced as well. There's no
cemeteries, parks, playgrounds, everything's being serviced through our summer program. We have not stopped any of our services, so we are doing that. Even the baseball fields are being dragged, although they're not being lined. They will be dragged during the summer. So if people want to get some pickup games out there, they can. It's just that we're not permitting those things, and we're cutting our grass in the parks and cleaning up the playgrounds.
Yeah, I've noticed the playgrounds and the parks, the ball fields and that are being used for people doing conditioning and
yes,
and
that's
skills training. And
yeah, that's part of our plan, sir, as we open the rec centers, not to play organized baseball, but also to give them skill training. Through what the Cleveland Indians are helping us with that teaching our staff, and we would then give the kids some skill trainings over the summer.
Great. So, I know that you've upgraded your technology in terms of tracking lots and what our count is. Have you fully automated now, and do you have an accurate count from last year?
We have fully automated this year. We are in what we call CityWorks system that will take a picture of the lot prior to us cutting and take a picture of the lot after we cut, and it also gives us that coordinates that tells us we're on this lot.
Which one? Yeah.
Which one we're on, because you can have 3 lots in a row, and you have to make sure that you're on that right parcel for billing purposes. We have gone through a process this year that I have in the first cycle, as directed by the mayor, cut all the grass, right? We cut all the grass. We cut every lot on the street. We're supposed to cut every lot on the street, whether it's in violation or not in our first cycle. We will no bill those properties that are cutting their own. Once if they get a bill, we'll no bill it. But we don't want to come back. I think part of our problem when we first started, we were not cutting everything on that. If it wasn't in what they call violation, they wouldn't cut it. Well, when you get back 7 weeks later, that would look like it's we should
Never been cut, right?
Yeah, it hadn't been cut at all. So we are cutting everything on the street, vacant lots and vacant properties. If there's any concern with citizens that have a problem with someone cutting their lot that they said they're maintaining, then we'll no bill it. But we don't want to miss a lot when we get back. It's 6 to 7 inches high and other lots are lower. So we want to make it as neat as possible and as clean as possible. Again, our trim cycles are behind a little bit. We have a trim crew that goes along with the tractors, but we also have vacant structure crews that I have informed them that they need to cut the tree lawns with the small mower. We cannot cut with the large mowers. We cannot cut the tree lawns with a vacant lot. So what I've instructed the trim crews and the vacant structure crews is to cut that tree lawn so it doesn't look like it. You haven't touched the lot at all, and then the trim crews come behind.
That explains, yeah, okay.
Okay.
And I've noticed that you've had additional staff out that are doing a lot of trash pickup before cutting.
Yes, we try to get them out ahead. If not, then when the trim crews come back in, they are to clean up and pull any debris that's in there that they can get out of a lot onto the curb. And we have packers that go around. There's about a couple of days behind the trim crews, and they will pick up any debris that's brought out of the lot and put into a packer. We have about 6 packers running throughout the city from parks, not from waste collection, but from parks. So,
well, I talked to one of the crew leaders. I saw them out, and the folks who were picking up trash weren't just picking up trash on the vacant lot. They were out on the street, on the sidewalks, and some neighboring. So they were doing quite a good job of not just focusing what's in front of them.
Thank you. I let them know because that's what we had asked them to do, to make sure they pick up everything, clean up everything. It's a yeoman task, but you have to do it. It's part of what we have to do.
Yeah. And I think on the billing stuff, the number of complaints that have come in where people have been billed erroneously seems to have dropped. I know that was a special effort last year, and billing's important, but I think getting it right is just as important. It seems like you guys have really, with this new technology and with CityWorks, and being able to GPS track the right address, that seems to be really a strong focus.
That is a help. That's a big help as we move through with the CityWorks. Again, it was a new system last year. We didn't get everything into the system and didn't get it converted over. But this year we're fully in the CityWorks process. And again, we're still working out some kinks because some, just understanding tablets and things of nature on the street and understanding. So, but it helped because we have pictures. If there's anybody is appealing the process or if we've done something, we have a picture before and a picture after that we can give to the citizens to say, well, it was in violation.
Yeah, and I think just to remind, as residents are watching this, that if there is something that comes up and you get that bill or get that notice, make sure they reach out quickly because we're trying not to have that get put on a tax duplicate because they didn't respond.
And the bill shows on the back how you appeal that process. And we'll go through that process and get back to them as very quickly and tell them, whether it was done in error or that we were no billing.
Great. If you have nothing else, Director, I'll open up for questions from my colleagues.
I'm fine, thank you.
Any questions from my colleagues? I know that this is a hot topic for a while, and now that we've got an understanding of the delay that was caused early on in terms of hiring and getting equipment out, Councilman Bashir Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. Chair, to the Director, can you give me the process of how the crews come out and cut? Do they, they come out, they cut, then somebody else comes and trims, and what's the process? I've been getting a lot of complaints that that, you know, that there's been a lot of mess kind of just left afterwards. So just for us to know, what's your process in cutting and maintaining?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman, Mr. Chairman, to the councilman. What it is that our tractor drivers go out and cut a vacant lot. We're normally about 7 days behind with a trim crew. The tractor drivers do not get off the tractors and trim a lot. We have a trim crew that comes behind all the tractor drivers. And that we're usually about 7 days, but again, we brought them on later this year, Councilman, because of the social distancing and the health issues and CDC guidelines. So we don't crowd everybody into the thing. So we are about 10 days behind our tractor drivers in trimming those crews. So the process is we go through a ward. Each unit is supplied with a tractor, several tractors, and trim crews. We will go through a ward, and they have what they call sectors, and they'll move through systematically through those sectors, cut all the vacant lots, and then the trim crew follows behind. The cleanup crew. The tractor driver then moves on to the next lot, and the trim crews, which naturally takes more time than tractor cutting, will come behind them, and that's how we process through the work. We have to do it systematically. If we start jumping for, here and there, then you will never get through a ward and get everything done. So systematically, we go through that ward through our sectors. And
Do you have, Director, someone that follows you, follows after the trimming, that cleans up the trash that's exposed after the grass is cut?
Mr. Chairman, to the council, that is the trim crew. The trim crew should clean that trash up out of that lot when they get there to trim and to trim around the edges and then clean those lots out.
Okay.
All the trash and paper.
So if they don't do that, then that's a problem.
That's the issue for us. Yeah, okay. That's a big issue because we want it cleaned up.
Okay. The second question, Chair to the Director, is what do you need to make this process better? Besides the rain, I know that rain causes.
I'm looking at the process now on our system. It's a systematic cut. I think there are some things that can be done differently in our sectors that will make it better, right? As far as going through the different wards, I think that's we have it. I think we have to drive the point to the people on the street what we need, and it's always a problem. The problem is always you have to stay on the supervisor to make sure this stuff is done, right? Mm. And so what I've been doing in my new capacity here, I've been riding and watching and making sure that these things are done, and that the supervisors are making sure that what's supposed to be done is done. All right. So that system, if you talk about making the system better, is more accountability from your supervisors and make sure that they're following up on what was given to the crews. Crews have a certain number of lots and structures they have to bring back every day. Mm. But we also have to make sure that number that they bring in is verified, and that's what our unit leaders are supposed to do.
So it's not just equipment. It's not just you need more equipment. It's accountability from the workers.
Accountability. I think it's always accountability. I think supervision is key to all services. Right. People will do what if you're not inspecting what you expect, then you have a problem. So I am working with the supervisors and park maintenance. And I had meetings with them. I had several meetings with them and informed them on what I expect. And it's coming together again. I say to you, Councilman, I say to everybody, Councilman, we lost that first round. Mm-hmm. Right? But I like a prize fighter, I hope I'm going to recoup on this second round.
Yes, sir. We don't want to get knocked out, Director.
We don't want to get knocked out. We're sustaining our punches, but we're going back at it, and we're going to do better this second round of cutting.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. And I think, as the director stated, one of the things that will help a lot is the new equipment coming in. That's going to be a big benefit. Councilman Griffin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. First of all, know it's a tough time, man. I know COVID-19 really put a lot of us behind, and we've asked our citizens to be patient, but you know, I'm glad that, you know, you just basically fessed up to what you said, you know, Director. I think that's important that people know, you know, hey, we lost this first round, but we're going to recover on the second round. I think that's important. Another thing I think that a lot of people don't know, and I don't know if this is just news or not, but the person who you used to have handle that retired. So, you know, Director, you're a super cat, but who else is helping you with this? Because this is a heavy load. And I mean, I know that you multitask very well, but you got a lot of different things. How are we looking at trying to bring on board a honcho in order to really try to make sure that you have somebody to watch over that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the council, you're right. We do need a honcho. What the commissioner of park maintenance retired. Just so happened he retired in April. So as the season started, but I wish him well. And you know, when it's time to go, it's time to go. So we are now posting for the commissioner's position. We have a posting out, and we're starting to get in resumes so that someone can come in and honcho this process and this division, because that division takes care of a lot of things. And as I take on that lead in that area of division, as you know, I have like 9 divisions, but I've taken on that because we don't have a honcho, right? If I had someone that I could say, hey, but I like to make sure that it's done, because the responsibility, Councilman, ultimately falls on me, right? I have to report to the mayor, and the mayor wants it done. So it ultimately the responsibility is on me. Until I get that honcho, then I'm going to have to do what I have to do to make sure that things are getting done. We've got people in the street. I've got a person that does parks and vacant lots. It's split between them. Mr. Alexander and Ms. Crispson, right, who takes care of vacant lots, and Mr. Alexander is overseeing the parks and vacant lots. So we are working together to make sure that we get this thing done. They've been outstanding and telling me what's needed and how we need to get this done. So I'm working towards that honcho, as you call him, right, as fast as possible. Believe me, I wish I could hire him tomorrow, right? But we are working towards that end, to get that honcho.
All right, because we know that person is important. I just want to make sure that, you know, our listening audience knows that, because they don't give us any excuses. You think that they don't give you a chance to make any excuses. They doggone sure don't give us any excuses.
We understand, yes. And I understand. And again, I take full responsibility for the first round loss. And again, I want to tell your citizens and your constituents that we will not lose the second round. We will be on top of this thing, and we will get this going and make this thing work.
Thanks, Cox. Couple of procedural questions. My colleague, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman and Director Cox said that we have about 16,000 or so lots. What percentage, or do you know, like, how many are on the east side versus how many are on the west side? How many are in the central part of the wards? Because I would tend to think that some of the inner wards that like represent 5, 6 parts of 5, 6, 7, 12, and some of those inner areas, even if you look at some of the southeast part of town, probably have more abandonment and probably have more homes torn down. So how do you look at deploying your workforce where the biggest need is at, and how you actually identify how to make sure that you put the appropriate resources there? And what percentage of those 16,000 or so are on that east side versus anywhere else?
Mr. Chairman, to the council, first let me say this: there's 16,000 land bank lots. Mm-hmm. That does not include privately owned lots that we have to cut. There may be another 4,000 to 5,000 privately owned.
Or higher, yeah.
Or higher, right? That we have to cut. We estimate about 25,000 to 30,000 vacant properties in the city that we have to maintain. So what we have done, we've located, Councilman Griffin, all of those lots. We understand that some of the far west side wards don't have as much vacant property as some of the far east side wards. And so we allot our staffing appropriately to maintain those properties on the east side and the west side. You asked a question about where the heaviest workload is. We find it, you're absolutely right. I think the south side has a lot of vacant property, but vacant lots, not as many vacant homes, but they have wards 1, 2, 4, 6, right? 7 and 9 are probably the heaviest that we have. 5, only 5. I'm sorry, I missed 5, but they're there. That's where we have the heaviest load. So we have appropriate more staffing, more tractors to that area. And so we do know that that's where our heaviest workload is. And we assign our staff appropriately based on the load of the vacant property or vacant structures that we have.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't know if Director Cox has this, Mr. Chairman to Director Cox, but if we don't, I would love to see us get it. Is there a GIS map or some kind of heat map that shows us kind of where these vacant properties are at? It would be good for each one of us to have that so that we could actually monitor and be able to look up some of those things as well. So I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, I know that you very technical with all of those kind of tools, but I would love for us to get that if it's some kind of way.
I can, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
So yeah, thank you, Director. The NST, the program that we work with from Case University has the mapping capabilities, and our new planning map also has the mapping capabilities. So I can arrange that we can have a presentation so that you can hone in on any area, show the ownership of the records of that, and show clearly where publicly owned as well as privately owned green space and land is at. And there's a number of different venues that you can do that through, but the NST program is the one that's the fastest and the easiest to get through. So,
and some years ago, we had that Case West Reserve had prepared that kind of a mapping for us, so we can go back and count to the council point. We'll try to work with you, Mr. Chairman, to see about getting that done, Councilman.
That would be great if we could get that, because one of the things that I really try to do is educate my citizens so that they can understand the enormity of what we're dealing with. It's nothing like a good understanding and making sure that people really understand what we're dealing with and how we're trying to operate. It's when they don't understand and they just don't see it getting done, and it's when they get frustrated.
Yep,
So
yep.
I think that'd be a good tool for us to have, just a procedural thing, just to make sure I understand. Do you guys cut backyards? I found that we got, everybody knows that I'm the biggest anti-groundhog council person. And if you don't cut grass in the backyards, man, them groundhogs go nuts. And it actually creates problems for the neighbors adjacent to them. Do you cut backyards, and how do you make that determination to make sure that those get cut on vacant properties, private properties?
Again, Mr. Chairman, making sure it's done is up to the supervisors. Have to make sure when we go to a vacant structure, they should cut the front and the back of that structure and bring anything that they can bring out by hand out to the curb. If there's large scale dumping back there, then we'll put it on our loader initiative work. But yes, sir, to your question, yes, we do cut back lots. A lot of times, sometimes, sir, they'll miss them because a neighbor will cut the front grass on a vacant, and they think somebody's maintaining it. So, but I tell them all to go and look in the backyard before they move on. But again, with this city works, vacant structures, it gives a better identification on what's out there and what needs to be cut. So to your question, yes, sir, we do cut the vacant. We're supposed to cut the vacant properties, backyards.
And just as a point of clarification on that, Director, if the lot's fenced in, if it's not accessible for equipment, it becomes an issue of, I'll say trespassing, but
trespassing.
Yeah, that's
of
where
not being able to get in, and then it's a process by which you have to do to get in and cut it.
Right, and first, I want to thank you. I know that we don't talk about different issues, but I want to thank you because there was specifically one that was like closely It was kind of fenced in and it was close on the border of where myself and Councilman Brancatelli share an area down in the Slava Village area. And you went down there and went in and did that. So I want to thank you for that. The only other thing that I have, Mr. Chairman, is at some point in time, oh, well, one more question for Director Cox. You know, by the time the trim crews get out, and that's why I'm glad you said, and I think that's kind of where we have to communicate it to my colleagues, is that we're not going to catch up to the second round. We lost the first round because by the time the trim crews come, the tractor cut has already been grown back or whatever. So, you know, it's almost like we pretty much just need to chalk the first round and say that we're going to catch up with the second round, because I've already seen areas where the tractor has cut and the trim crew hasn't come that is growing back already. So, you know.
If I may, we brought on 15 additional trim crews
Okay.
about a week and a half ago.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Okay.
That about 15 crew. That's 30 people, 2 people to the crew. So we're still doing everything we can to catch up with that trim. I think we have to trim it, right, and get it done. So we'll continue in that trim, and we can't just and the tree lawns. If you see the tree lawns, you know they got to be trimmed. Else it just doesn't look like we've done anything to the lot at all, and around the trees. So we're still going to move through this area. We got that extra 15 crews working a second shift, just a staggered shift, so we can continue working later on in the evening, catching up with our trim.
Okay. And last question, Mr. Chair. I really hope that at some point in time, I know that I have a relationship with the county land bank, but some of these lots are county land banks too. And it'd be good to understand the county process because I know that I can make a call and a lot of the other members of council have a relationship with the people at the land bank. But I think it's good for myself and my colleagues to understand the county land bank cutting process as well. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Cleveland.
Okay, I am muted myself. Okay, thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Director.
Good morning.
Just a few follow-up questions. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties this morning. Through the chair to Director Cox, you just mentioned that you brought on 15 additional hand crews. That's 30 additional people. Is this number included in the 180 employees you said that are in the vacant lot program?
No, ma'am. This is addition to the 180.
Okay. And through the chair to the director, is there a possibility of bringing even more people on if the need dictates? Because we had a little rain this morning and yesterday and one day over the weekend, so we know, and I think it's supposed to rain this coming weekend, so we're still having rain issues, which again pushes back, which delays the time that employees can work, but also adds to the growth in the vacant lots. So, if there's a need, and is there a possibility for bringing on even more people? Because right now we're just at the very beginning of summer, and so we've got a long way to go to make it through to the end of the season.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilwoman, it's not just a matter of bringing people on, it's about having vehicles to put them in and getting them to the locations. So when we talk about bringing more people, you have to have pickup trucks, you have to have more weed whackers, you have to have more push mowers. At this point in the season, and then we got to train them for a week or so, right, to get them done. So at this point, no, ma'am, I think we have to just catch up. I think, as I said to you before, and I'm not making no excuses, we lost that first cut. I believe with the weather changing and the summer coming and the grass starting to not grow as fast, that we will be able to get through this second cut without the number of complaints that we have gotten from you and citizens and everybody else around. Because again, it was unsightly and it was unhealthy. So I believe that we will do all right in the second. We'll do very well in the second round and get this thing done with the tractors coming on to cut those lots and getting these trim crews working these first and second shifts.
Thank you, Director. Now, earlier you mentioned that there was new equipment on order that is coming, and I wasn't able to hear you completely. Can you just repeat that part of your dialogue? What new equipment was ordered? And, you know, I'm assuming that was ordered before now, and that delivery was delayed to some degree by COVID.
Mr. Chairman, to the Councilwoman, what we did was we had, I think that your body, the body councils, passed the capital vehicle purchase legislation maybe about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, I'm not sure. We had 10 tractors in that order. The mayor ordered me to fast track those tractors after the legislation was passed, and we're expecting the receipt of those tractors in the next 7 to 10 days. So that will put us 10 more vacant lot tractors on the street to get these lots cut down. And so we already staffed for that to put the people in those seats. So we will be moving those tractors in our process as soon as they hit the street and we get them ready to go.
Thank you, Director. And through the chair, now, I know, we've all, you've heard from all of us.
Yes, ma'am.
And quite animated and vociferous, vehement and angry and everything else that we've gotten in turn from our residents. But I know we are also concerned about our employees and our vacant lot crew and the people who come on every year and work for the city very hard. And so we are still practicing social distancing and the safest procedures, right?
Madam Councilwoman, we are practicing that in every operation that we have on the street. Each and everybody we're given, if they're riding in a truck, 2 in a truck, we are giving them a shield, including and a face mask, and we made it mandatory that they wear that. Now, when you're paving streets or you tamping asphalt, it's kind of hard to do with a mask on, but we try to keep them social distance as much as possible. But it's mandatory that they take care. That we are masking them and keeping no more than 10 people in a room at a time. We don't let them sign out in the building. We'll come out and there are 10 in at a time to sign out and 10 at a time to sign in, so that we are not doing anything to violate the CDC rules and to keep our employees safe and out of harm's way. So yes, ma'am, we are following those rules and regulations. And
Thank
if you
you.
see someone that's not wearing a mask in the truck, son, call me and let me know, get the truck number, because it's a mandatory thing.
Okay, we'll do, some of our residents will call us if they see
Yes.
it.
Yes,
So
but again, we just let us know, because we want them to be safe. And sometimes we have to make their safety our priorities, because some of them just don't make their safety their priority. So we want to make them safe. We don't want to spread this pandemic, this virus.
Absolutely, we appreciate that as well. Just a couple other things, Director. Now, again, so for now, if we got issues or concerns, then we will call you or email you.
You can email me and I'll make sure that whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Councilwoman, as I said before, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, to the Councilwoman. We take any complaint that comes in and we'll get to it. I could give you a timeline when we get to it, but if I leave Ward 7 and go all the way out to go down to Ward 5 to do a complaint, then I can't continue on that cycle, right? So again, we will answer the complaints as fast as possible, but I can't work by complaints because it will not get it done. And I understand your dilemma and the rest council dilemma, but again, that's why I tell them just call me and I'm the guy who won't jump. It's not you, and you guys are. And Councilwoman, you don't complain much when I get something from you, right? It is, yeah, it's something that's really bugging you. So we will do it as fast as possible. We do have a few crews that we, as it like some council people, I think the council people on this call have ward crews that we will dispatch to complaints that we have to that do properties. I think Ward 7, Ward 5, Ward 9, Ward 10, Ward 1 has those kind of crews. I may have missed someone, but we will dispatch those crews to something that's very urgent.
Thank you. And speaking of the work crews, through the chair to the director, can you just go over again how the work crews work in conjunction with the overall program? And
when we're in, Mr. Chairman, to the council, when we're in a ward, we take those ward crews, which are they are hand crews. They're not tractor crews because you need a full-time employee to do the tractor cutting. So what we do is we take that crew and we work alongside of the crews that are in there. When we put our crews in, and the ward crew will work alongside of them. When we leave that ward, that crew is left behind to continue to service whatever needs to be serviced in that ward. And so it does not move. Ward 7 crew will not move to Ward 9. Ward 5's crew will not move to Ward 6 when we go to Ward 6. So that is how that crew works, and they are given their own equipment, their own tractor, their own lawnmower to cut and trim and pull out vacant structures.
thank you, Director. My last question, and it's not vacant lots, but so many, there's so many retirements, people retiring from, long service with city.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Every week I hear about somebody different who's been around for many years and they're now gone. So who's in charge of parks maintenance now?
I am acting in that capacity right now. I have people that have been in the division for a long time. There's section chiefs that are doing their jobs in urban forestry and cemeteries, in parks, in vacant properties. So I am just overseeing that operation. As I said earlier, we have posted for the commissioner's job. We have set out a posting for the commissioner's job, and we're starting to receive resumes. And we'll get that filled as soon as possible as we get candidates in and get interviewed. So I am taking on that responsibility because ultimately, as I said to the chairman, that it all lands on my desk anyway, and I'm the one that has to answer to the mayor. So I want to make sure that I have my ear to the ground and understand what I need to do and get it done until we get someone in that spot.
All right, thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hairston?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues have asked a few of my questions just about the process and, how we determine, the cycles, et cetera. So through the chair to the director, we appreciate the update and the information. I will say that the folks over at Humphrey are doing a great job over on the northeast side here, at least where I am. As you said, the first round was a bust, so I can accept that. I can also appreciate the accountability statement that you made as well, not only with the folks on the ground, but also the accountability within the process itself as well. Understanding that when we go to a street that we normally hit all of the lots on the street,
Yes.
but somewhere along the lines there was a systematic breakdown
Yes,
of doing that, and you all circle back to this. So I appreciate that. I'm gonna tell you, Tamisha is a rock star. You understand me? Over at Humphrey, you got two mics. The new mic is the one that I frequently run out in the neighborhood. When I can tell you, that co-lead or unit leader, I don't remember how you all kind of set that up. But he is going places where I don't think any other leader has gone out there in some of these back areas of Ward 10, where we've been needing some help for quite some time. So we appreciate their hard work, and obviously Todd has been stellar along the way as well. So I want to make those statements. Now I do have, and I mentioned this to actually the folks that I ran into on the ground, the newly demolition sites. There was a few demo sites that occurred at the very beginning of the year or end of last year that had some high grass and were missed along the way. And so when I reached out, actually when I was on the street, here comes the supervisor down the street. And so he and I had a little chat. How are we, through the chair to the director, how are we ensuring that we add those newly demo sites to the system for cutting? I understand sometimes not all of the fresh demo sites are added to the inventory list, but finding a way to keep track of those demo sites and maybe going out to check them after, Council Chairman, what is it, 6-7 months we see grass, depending on when the demo was completed, just making sure that those newly demo sites are added to the inventory list for cutting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the councilman. We get a demo list maybe every 2 weeks that we turn over to our vacant properties program, so that they know what demos have occurred. And again, as I said earlier, we're not to miss any vacant properties, any vacant lots. We're to cut them all, and then we'll sort it out at the end. You know, when you're young, and they gather you up, so we'll sort it out downtown, but we'll sort it out at the end and make sure that everything that's not supposed to be built is not built. But we take care of private and public properties, so we'll work through that issue. But I want everything cut on the street. I don't want to miss anything. And again, I'd rather err on the side of, oh, well, we're not gonna bill you, but then to have Councilman Harris say, listen, you missed a lot, right? We should not miss anything. And I appreciate your compliments to the staff. These are some hardworking people. This is not easy work. They work hard, but again, you always got to supervise and make sure things are done. So we'll continue to do that.
Right, and Mrs. through the chair to director, I appreciate that. Just wanted to bring that up about those demo sites. I didn't know that you all received every 2 weeks an updated demo site, which is really ensuring that, each of those sites are, put into the inventory. So that way, let's say we have another issue like the first cut we've experienced this time, that, if they miss some lots, but at least those demo sites are, because, some demo sites that may have occurred, fall, summer, winter last year are tall at this point, once the spring roll around the following year. So
they should be cut. They should be cut. If we go on the street and that demo site is there and it's not in our tablet, cut it and put it in the tablet.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I trust that that information will be after today will absolutely be made clear, and I'm sure some of the staff are watching as well.
Yeah. I hope all the staff's out in the street cutting these lots.
Right. Through the chair to the director, when do we anticipate a time where we will finish bringing on the remaining of the summer grass cutting crew staff? I know you mentioned there was another 15 crew sets of 2 that was brought on. Do we anticipate bringing on any additional staffing who may not brought on the first round that are still left out there?
Mr. Chairman, to the council, no. I think we've maxed our staff out as far as equipment and vehicles to transport. We have maxed that out, so it's not just a matter of bringing on staffing and budget, but it's also about having the equipment and the transportation to get people where they need to be. So we have maxed that out, and I think that with this, again, on this second cut, I think matter of fact, I know you and all your colleagues will see a difference in what we're doing and how we keep up.
Right? Okay, great. And I'll close with this, Mr. Chairman. Maybe when we begin the budget process again next year, that we look at. I'm glad that we were able to add in those 10 tractors. So I'm looking forward to those 1 or 2 other tractors coming to Humphrey for support. But maybe looking at adding a few additional pickup trucks the next go around. So in fact, that there has to be an increase or a limit in how many we can put in one truck in the future, that we be prepared, that we're prepared for that moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think the addition of the new clause and the bulk pickup is going to make a world of difference in how these lots get done, because right now folks have been navigating around couches and mattresses and you name it, it's been on some of these sites.
Yes, sir.
And that's made the process much more difficult. With these trucks coming in this week with bulk pickup and going for the next 4 weeks should really help that. Thank you, Councilman. Council President Kevin Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If this has already been raised, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to follow up on Councilwoman Cleveland's questions. The retirement of Rich Silva was kind of a big deal from an on the ground perspective. When you're dealing with parks, we're dealing with trees. These are the things that really consume a council member's summer, these types of issues. So just when something like this happens, again, an email, a plan, here's who's acting. It just seemed like, a lot of people were asking me, did he resign and retire? And I said, I'm not sure. And I had to follow up myself. So I would just like some more robust communication on these very important positions as they recycle, because again, this is what jams up our phone lines all summer: tree lawn trees, parks, cutting of the grass. I mean, these are big deals. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir. I made a note.
Thank you, Council President. Any further, Councilman Charles Life?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly to the director, I just want to make sure I understand this and I'm not mixing things up in my head. If a lot is privately owned, is it correct? It's the city protocol to cut it while we're on the street, but is it only billed if it's over 8 inches, if it was non-compliant to begin with, or am I mixing that up?
If it's in non-compliance, again, Councilman, Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, the tablets that we have in our city works takes a picture of the lot. And if it is in non-compliance and it's a privately owned lot, we will bill it. And they have an opportunity to appeal that bill. But if it isn't, as I said, I want them to cut everything on that street. If it is under 8 inches and we still cut it, then I won't bill it. Okay?
Okay.
But if it's out of compliance with the ordinance, then I will bill it. And then they have appeal process through that process.
Thank you for that. And to follow up on a point that Councilman Jones started to touch on, I know in the past the city has brought on like for potholes, hired out to supplement our existing pothole crews at the beginning of the season just because the need's so great. Do you think, I know that this year is kind of a special case because of COVID, but I know every spring the grass, suddenly the weather changes in the matter of 2 weeks and the grass shoots up and it's really difficult for us to keep up with it. And I think even privately, we're all struggling to cut our lawns when it's not raining. Would there be value maybe in considering bringing in just an additional set of crews, outside crews for that first round, just to make sure we're getting ahead of it? And then it seems that once we transition into July, August, September, when the rain slows down, it's much more manageable. But I'm wondering if that's something that's been looked at or if it'd be valuable.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the council, we front load all our hiring, and we do bring people in. We use an agency to get the people to work the vacant properties. That is not all of our internal crews that we mix with our internal crews, but we hire on about 300 agency workers to do the parks, the cemeteries, and the vacant structures. So that's what we do. We front load this. When the 15 additional crews that I brought on is because I saw we were falling behind with this trim, and we were allowed to bring those on because we had the budget for it, and we are moving through that. So we do front load our hiring and our process of getting people on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
I think we've pretty much covered all of our colleagues who had questions. Director, any other remarks before we
sir.
adjourn?
No, sir. Thank you. Again, I want to just reiterate to you and to the people watching that we did fall behind and on our cutting on the first of the year, and I want to say to them that we are going to catch up with everything in the second cycle to you, to the council people and to the citizens watching, that we will be catching up on this cycle. And I
Great.
thank you for your help, all your help in doing this.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues. With that, we will adjourn. Thank you, Director, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.